Welcome to the Amy Edwards Show. I'm your host, Amy Edwards. This is where we come to transform our lives, overcome fear, go for it at any age, and make our dreams reality. Become our best, most epic selves without letting things like fear and doubt hold us back. All right, I am so excited about today's guest. She started creating and working at the ripe old age of 12. And now at 24, she has already done so much as an entrepreneur, as a self-starter, and she has a really powerful story. So I'm so excited to speak today with Alexa Curtis. Alexa is a blogger and entrepreneur. She is the founder of the Be Fearless Summit, which she is growing in incredible ways. I can't wait for you to hear about it. Her father was wrongfully incarcerated when she was 7 years old. And she tells that story and how it helped her develop into the person that she is today. And she takes a stand on mental health and has a podcast around this as well. During her teen years, she not only moved out on her own, but she also pitched a show and got a show with Radio Disney. She's done numerous TV appearances. She's gone viral on Huffington Post at a young age, talking about her eating disorder. And we're going to talk about all that and so much more today, and about what she's learned. I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. As soon as I met her, I was like, what a badass. And she's a mentor in the same program that I'm in with Collective Futures, which I've talked about on this show. And they said that she's the youngest mentor that they've had in that program. And I'm not surprised. I mean, she's just an incredible woman, and she's still learning, and her awareness is so cool to see, because so often we forget that it's okay to be where we are in life. And sometimes it's just about the fact that we are whatever age we are, and that's totally okay. But it's also about overcoming our own mind in so many ways and getting better all the time. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm so excited for you to connect with her. You can follow her on Instagram too at Alexa_Curtis, or you can go to her website, which is lifeunfilteredwithalexa.com. And I've got everything in the show notes, so you can find her and learn more about all that she does to make this world a better place and lift up our stories, starting with her own powerful story. So let's get to today's episode and a little bit of other stuff. Thank you so much for being here. I am immensely grateful always. And if you can leave a review for the show wherever you're listening, it helps us grow and keep getting amazing hosts and just get better and better and better, and keep living our lives to the fullest. I'm so excited to still be sitting here too, after pushing through when the network closed, and to keep growing and to keep showing up, because sometimes that's what it's all about. Just keep showing up, keep doing what you feel called to do. I love you so much. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with Alexa. It's badass. So thank you for being here today. Let's get to it with Alexa Curtis. Welcome.
How are you? Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. I'm so glad that you could come sit down, because your story is so interesting, and I'm super excited to learn more and all about like your evolution and where you see that going. So first off, you're a blogger and entrepreneur.
Yes.
I'm entrepreneur. You're a blogger and entrepreneur. You're the founder of the Be Fearless Summit and doing all sorts of things. You've got your podcast. What did I miss?
Yeah, started as a blogger. Now I'm really focused on the Summit program, and was the host of a show on Radio Disney, and then came to Austin last March. But yeah, I've been doing it now for about 10 years, probably full time for about like half of that.
Which is crazy, because you're 24.
24.
Yeah.
I feel so old. I turned 25 in October, and I'm scared.
You are?
I don't know. I feel weird about it, because I think a lot of people, and a lot of my friends are older. So I know my core group of friends are all like 30, 32. So they're all like freaking out they're not married yet. And I'm like, I don't even think about the marriage or the relationship part. I just think of like, by the time I'm 30, I want to have X amount of money and I want to be this in my life. And the relationship is not even in my mind at that point. But that's a whole other like concern. So I just try and ground myself.
Good.
You're not running out of time.
Stay grounded. You are, from my perspective, you have so much time. I don't know if you watch Gary Vee at all too.
Yes.
He talks extensively about this. And no, I mean, I'm turning 50 and I still feel like, oh my gosh, I still have things to accomplish and all that. And I'm like, okay, relax, because 10 years from now, you're going to think you were so young and hot right then. And like, at least I've got that from my experience. So.
Yeah, you're my idol. I would not even think that you were 50 at all.
Thank you.
So I need your whole lifestyle routine, Amy, following this episode.
Oh, I wish I had like a magic solution, but I don't, except just live in the moment, be happy, and don't put so much pressure on yourself, which I'm sure is a big part of your message.
I think so. And I think that that's something that's really interesting for people in their 20s nowadays, is there is this expectation that if you're not at this point by 25, 30, you haven't gone viral, like all of these things, that you're missing out, or that you're not going to hit that at any point. And I think it's really frustrating, because I mean, like when we grew up, I mean, I didn't grow up with this type of social media, and I'm assuming because you're 20 years older than me, you didn't either. Mm-hmm. So I don't have that mindset of like, when is it going to happen? It's more just like trying to build the blocks to get there, but looking at it from a long-term perspective, not something that needs to happen immediately.
Good. That's a good mental perspective. And so let's talk a little bit about your story and why you even started the blog, and your dad too, which I know is a huge part of the story. Yeah.
So when I was 7, my father was wrongfully convicted and put in prison in Rhode Island. And
do you remember the trial and everything like that?
Yeah. And, I really didn't think about any of this until I was probably 18. And that's when I realized, like, I had this moment of being like, oh, wow, you're a lot more fucked up than I thought.
What was he convicted for?
Terrible things. So basically, like, long story short, he was an undiagnosed diabetic at the time. And in 2007, there was no law where you had to record interrogation. So in 2014, and this just gets a lot into like how corrupt the justice system is, Obama passed a law where you had to record interrogation rooms, but he ended up walking into a Marriott.
That wasn't until Obama?
Yeah, it wasn't until Obama.
That seems insane to me.
Exactly. And it was because so much stuff like this was happening. But it's not super common for a white man in Connecticut to be wrongfully convicted. Yeah. This is something that certainly happens predominantly to, African-American men or whatnot. And so it's just this, it puts it in perspective of like how easy it is to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But he walked into a hotel in Vernon, Connecticut, and was acting schizophrenic. And there was a guy at the front desk who had a photo of a guy who had been going across Rhode Island, New York, Connecticut, just doing things relating to kids, nothing that was like, more like looking or things that like random things like that. And so what ended up happening is the cops were called instead of an ambulance. No one could find my dad for about 48 hours. He was given no food. He wasn't given a phone call. There was no recording of this interrogation. Within 48 hours, my mom received a phone call from my dad being like, I'm at the hospital. They ended up bringing him to a hospital, like, come and pick me up. She ends up calling the police station, super small town, and just gets told on the phone, you can come to the trial on Monday and figure out what your husband has done.
Holy shit.
And I mean, my dad is like the most genuine guy. Like, I have a half sister and he was a great dad to her. She's 16 years older than me though, so they didn't really grow up super close. And what ended up transpiring is that he, in that interrogation room, had signed 3 false confessions. And my mom had put the pieces together.
Out of it.
Out of it. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with diabetes at all.
A little.
Yeah, but the minute your blood sugar, even if you don't eat for 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
And if you're like not actively trying to fast, you're going to start like, things are going to start happening. And when your blood sugar drops that low, and it's called hyperglycemia, you end up acting psychotic. And
your brain can't function.
You can't. And so, like I said, when you're in that room, locked in that room for that amount of time, no food, nothing was given to him. He ended up signing those things and he has no recollection of that. So at the end of the day, what ended up happening is my mom was a nurse. She walked out. She had seen an article of a guy from the Innocence Project who had saved a girl, something that had happened with a trial in New Haven. She called 411 and said, can you connect me to this guy, Donald Connery? And his name actually was Donald Connolly. And the girl on the phone, thank God, from 411 was like, I think you're thinking of this guy who lives in this part of Connecticut. And it's like kind of like chilling. They ended up getting connected. He went and was like, I'll go and sit down with your husband in the prison in the holding cell, and I'll tell you if I think I can take on this case, like AK if I think he has, signed these confessions and is innocent.
And meanwhile, there's a trial going on already?
It hadn't even started. No. So he's in this holding cell.
Okay.
Basically show up to the court on Monday is how it goes. Like, see what he's been convicted of. And then there's a period when then you're allowed to get like a lawyer and whatnot and prepare for this trial. So this guy goes and visits my dad, part of the Innocence Project, and came back to my mom and was like, if you proceed with this trial, He was like verbatim, the most innocent man I've ever met is going to go away for life. And he's probably going to die because he's diabetic. So they ended up stopping the trial, and my dad had to take a plea bargain, which meant that instead of going to trial where anything with kids, innocent or not, it's a very heavy thing. He was going to go away for life. And so he took a plea bargain and went to prison, maximum security in Rhode Island for 5 years.
Oh my God.
Left with a record. And for the first time in, I think, 13 years, a few days ago, was able to leave the state without calling anyone or whatnot. So anyway, I started my blog the year that he got out.
Okay.
And that is kind of, I think, subconsciously why I started it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It's very crazy. Yeah. How is he?
I mean, at this point, I think it's been so long, and I think that kind of pain, I mean, I personally don't know that I could sit and talk to a probation officer every day and say, like, I did this when I didn't do it.
No way.
And I think for him, really, from what I can tell, the only way that he got through it was me. I think there was just multiple things. I mean, I had heard, and I mean, I went to the prison. I've been at the trials. It's just traumatic. I don't think if he had me, he would have gotten through it. I just don't think that he emotionally could have done it. But I mean, he lost everything. Like, he used to make $100,000 a year. He now makes like $20,000 a year. He had a record. He could never get a normal job. This is a college-educated man who is an incredibly good guy who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So did he have to register as a sex offender?
Yeah. The whole time. And I think he was on probation probably, I think it was for about like 12 years. But I mean, the thing is, they give you those options. You go to trial and you go away for life, or you take this plea bargain and say that you did it even when you didn't do, like, it's a weird thing. And that's the two options you get.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but you look at a lot of these cases like O.J. Simpson, right? It's obvious that he did that crime, but you have a legal team behind you. I mean, my family number one, didn't have much money from the beginning, but they had no experience with the justice system. They got the wrong lawyer involved at first. Like, there was just all of these factors that perhaps if I had come from a different background with tons of money, he would have been,
money talks.
Yeah, it does.
With
and
the
especially with the
system.
justice system, it does.
Yep.
So it's sad, but I love him. I'm really close to my dad. Yeah.
Did he and your mom stay together?
They did. Yeah, they did. And people always ask me,
That's great.
Do I think my mom thought he did it? I've never really asked him that, but I think she just was like, it didn't make any sense. And a lot of there was one piece of DNA that had gotten apparently like thrown out by this first lawyer, which just all these bad things that showed that he wasn't the one who did this initial first crime. And they didn't find that until after the fact. But I think that when she called this guy, and my mom was always like very cultured. She's from England, like just I think very aware of just the world and how corrupt it is.
Oh, your mom's English?
Yes.
Okay.
She's very liberal. So she's very much like believer in people, like always want to see the good.
Yeah.
And so I think, when she was notified of these things, it just didn't make any sense because there was one piece of evidence. My dad always went to the gym every day in Connecticut at the same time, but this was even before there were photo IDs at the gym. So the cops had gone and said that he had paid someone to go to the gym and scan in for him.
Oh, come on.
When in reality, he had been, and that was when the first crime had occurred. There was no way to prove it. There was really no other security camera back in this time or photo ID. So it's cool now that there are all these things, but at the expense of, a lot of people that have gone through similar experiences.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your journey.
Yeah.
So how have you seen this affect your mental health? And then tell me about starting the blog and then just your journey. Like, what was it initially about?
So I initially started it as a fashion blog. I always just never really fit in school, loved fashion. And my sister was 16 years older than me. And I think we were both always just a bit different. She moved out like right at 18, was like, I can't live in a small town in Connecticut, went to New York.
Is this a sister that's 16 years older?
Yeah. So she's 40. She now lives in Istanbul. She's married, 2 kids, definitely like living her life there. But I think growing up and seeing how different she was and that she always kind of wanted to leave the small town, I always was very inspired by that. And so I started this blog on this website called blogger.com.
Yeah, I remember Blogger.
And it was
I think I had a blog on Blogger.
You probably did.
I did, a fashion one too.
You're cool like me, so I feel like you would have done the same thing.
We're kindred spirits.
Exactly. And so I started it, and then for about like 3 years, just would write about fashion every day. I mean, I was making no money, whatnot, but I found like this community of all these other young adult teen bloggers. So we all kind of bonded through the internet. And you would like go on, there was a sidebar and you would connect on Google and subscribe.
I remember this.
Yeah, there was no Instagram, no Facebook really, I think at the time. And so it was really cool. And so I did that for about 5 years. And then I first pitched a TV segment when I was 14 to a producer I had seen in Connecticut on Fox. I found him on LinkedIn. And that was the first time I had done a TV segment. And
so
then,
you're what, 17 at this point?
No, I was 14.
So you were 14?
Yeah. And so I went
and you
on.
pitched a TV show.
And I
you're
remember
like, I'll just pitch a TV show.
And I remember I had I have the pitch. I still have it. And it was in Hartford, Connecticut, about like 40 minutes from where I was born. And I remember I went to the mall with my mom and was like, I just need you to buy me these clothing and then I can return it. And I remember there was like a Banana Republic plaid jacket, and it was like everything was like $70. And my mom, raised me as a single parent essentially, because my dad was gone.
Oh,
and
for sure.
I remember just like crying, being like, please, like I'm going on TV. Like I know you don't believe that this is going to go anywhere, but like I really want to do this. Can you like please just put this on your credit card, this jacket? And so I did the segment and I went on. And then when I was about 16, I started a LinkedIn page and started getting approached by people who were like, do you do social media for people? This is kind of the beginning. I'm trying to think of what year this was, probably now 2016, 2015. Like Hootsuite, like pre-scheduling,
Sure.
Twitter and Facebook posts were really big at this time. So I took on some clients, and while I was a freshman, sophomore in high school, was doing that and doing so bad in school. And then moved out and did the whole starving artist thing in Brooklyn when I was 17, and started like religiously doing TV segments to pay the bills. And then I kind of just— About fashion, yeah. Until I did a post when I was 17 on having to post about an eating disorder that I had. And it went kind of viral, and I realized that I had no interest in fashion. I felt just really disconnected at that point to that scene. And having gone to Fashion Week for years as like a girl, just really trying to make it, I saw the pitfalls of the industry, the substance abuse and the eating disorders. And I really didn't want to get too strapped into that lifestyle because of, my childhood. I thought it was really easy for me to go down a path that probably wouldn't have been good. And so I ended up starting to talk more about mental health and living life unfiltered. And then had my own podcast, and then through that got the Disney show, and successfully really was able to start really sharing my story more being young than talking about fashion.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a good evolution. Sometimes we come into things talking about, something that seems more surface, and then you're able to find your voice a lot more.
Exactly. And I bet you can probably relate to that too.
I can.
Yeah. And everything that you post about and whatnot too is like so authentic to you.
Yeah.
But it takes time for people to figure out what really matters to them. Like, what do you want to leave on this earth, right? And so now I know what my mission is, but it took about 5 to probably 7, 8 years to really figure that out.
Are you ready to up-level your pleasure practice? I have in mind, and one of the tools that I've used is from Wands. That's WAANDS. One of my favorite items that they have is the Cervix Wand. It is their #1 best-selling glass pleasure wand for vaginal and anal de-armoring. That means more sensation. That means more getting in touch with your body. It's designed for cervical and G-spot stimulation, and it has helped thousands of women become more connected to themselves and their own pleasure while supporting them to heal pelvic pain through self-yoni massage. So if you are curious about getting more in touch with yourself, then I have an offer for you. You can get a discount using my code Amy Edwards, but if you use the link in the show notes, you can get 20% off from Wands. They have so many other beautiful items to choose from, with a large selection of 100% pure crystal pleasure wands. They create the most gorgeous, luxurious products that encourage you to honor your body, celebrate your sexuality, and live in pleasure, which is a big part of what we're about on this show. And yes, I use one myself. So go today to wands.com, that's WAANDS, and use the code Amy Edwards for 10% off, or use my link in the show notes for 20% off of your purchase from Wands. Again, my favorite is the Cervix Wand. It is trademarked and it is amazing. Take it from me. Check it all out and the reviews on wands.com. That's WAANDS.com, and use my link in the show notes for 20% off. Yeah. Well, how old were you when you had the eating disorder? What thoughts do you have about that?
I was about 16, and that was because when I was going through the process of like really getting involved with fashion and then taking on some internships, I started modeling, and in the fashion industry, you'll never be thin enough.
So it was tied to that.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think probably for me, it was a control thing. Like I'm just someone who naturally needs to be in control,
Yeah.
like even in my relationships. And so I've gotten, the older that I get, the better I am at like losing the control a little bit.
Yep.
But I think the food thing for me was something really, really big. So it was called orthorexia, what I had. A little bit of anorexia, but it was basically this obsession with just like counting everything you eat and making sure it was so healthy. So I was like vegan, and I wouldn't eat, like I was just existing off of air. And I was able to like get out of that through therapy, and then came probably a few other years of just some other personal stuff that I went through. But I think the eating thing, especially for young women, is probably very relatable. Like I don't know any woman who looks in the mirror and is like, I don't think I yet have met someone who every single moment of every day looks in the mirror and is like, I am obsessed with every part of my body.
I know. Believe me, I know.
And you're so beautiful.
Oh, well,
so
thank
people
you.
probably
So
think like,
are you.
yeah, you do. And but there's always going to be something. That's society.
Yeah. It really is. And I was thinking about, you in therapy. Was that something that you did even when you were young and your dad was incarcerated? Like, did you go through therapy then? Did your mom have you in therapy, or what'd you do then? Or did you even notice mental health?
So what ended up happening is, so when that happened to my dad, I kind of went through the system a bit. So like DCF was heavily involved. They tried to take me away multiple times from my mom. A lot of people I don't think know this about my story. I was like the kid that was called out of classrooms. Cops would come in and out. And I don't know looking back why this was. But there was a period of time where I was like kind of taken out of my mom's hands at a young age. And then it was like required by the state that I go to therapy.
I was going to say, I bet there were a lot of state requirements when a parent is, being convicted for something like that and they have a minor.
Yeah. So it was, and at this point, like my mom was working all day, every day as a nurse to try and pay the bills.
She was busting her ass.
Yeah. And my sister had moved out. So I was really going through this process on my own. So I remember multiple times. Yeah. I remember, there was a therapist I was matched with when I want to say maybe 10, 11, and it was a guy. And I remember, I can't even tell you what I ate for lunch, Amy, but I remember this room that I sat in. And I was so young. I remember not feeling comfortable with a male therapist. And I still to this day, I've never seen a male therapist. It just like isn't my vibe.
That's not my thing either.
No. And so then when they stopped requiring me to go, I didn't go back. And then I probably started going again when I was 17. And then I think I realized when I was about 18, like I mentioned a little bit a few moments ago, like I just realized I was really struggling. I was lashing out at people. I was very angry. And at this point, my dad was out, but the turmoil that you experience, the long-term effects of not only having like gone through the system and seeing it, but also just like seeing him struggle and my mom still struggle. I was very angry, but my parents were still so just trying to like live and exist and pay the bills and whatnot. So I had no one really telling me you needed to get help. And so I got to a point where there was just like a few incidents, and I would just have like, just moments where I would just do something just terrible, like lash out on someone or hit something or whatever. And at this time, I was doing really well career-wise. So I was almost dealing with like, I could go and talk to all of these people, yet behind the scenes, I was just like completely isolating myself, so angry, so mad, like really self-hating myself. And so then I started going and I went on BetterHelp when I think I was 18 or 19, and I was matched with a therapist. And the first few times I saw her, I was like, I hate this woman. Like she's just like mean. Like she just would like push me and like ask me questions, and I just felt really uncomfortable. So I like stopped going for like 6 months, and then I went back and then really worked with her honestly for about a year and a half. And truly am able to say I think she changed my life.
The same lady?
The same lady.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had a few people in between meeting her, but I realized, and people ask me a lot about therapy, like, you only go to therapy if something's wrong with you. And I completely disagree. I mean, there was something wrong with me, but also there is so much benefit in having like an unbiased opinion. But for her, I really sat down initially and was like, I'm really scared of either committing suicide or doing something really bad, and I just need help. And so when we worked together, it just became this evolution of like really getting to the root of why I was feeling all these ways and how to stop feeling that way. And I'm just a huge advocate for it. I love therapy.
Well, it sounds like you already had kind of a self-awareness around it. Well, even when you were lashing out and stuff, did you feel like there was a part of you that was kind of like, okay, something's going on? Or?
Yes, because I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but it was almost like I would do it and then I would feel so bad. But in that moment, like I couldn't control it.
Yeah.
And also though, I think just because of also my mom is British, like British people don't really share their emotions. So neither one of my parents, as much as I love them, they were never sitting there being like, you need to get help. It was a few things that I had done around my sister and she was like, I can't be around you. Like there's something wrong with you. But she also was dealing with her own stuff.
Were they the types of people that were open even when your dad was going through all that?
No.
So you weren't coming from a place where we were like, let's be vulnerable together or something, like modeling that.
No. And I mean, I look at you and even from what I know about you, I can just imagine that your kids probably feel so comfortable to come and talk to you about hopefully anything.
I hope so. I definitely try to foster that because I didn't come from that either.
Exactly.
And I don't know if it's part generational or what, but my parents were not like that at all. They were children of the 50s. And so
Mine too. My mom's born in 51.
Yeah. Well, they grew up then. My parents are probably your grandparents' age.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they didn't talk about that. They didn't reveal to me those things, and now they're both passed away, and it's just kind of bums me out. Thanks. But it kind of bums me out that like we didn't have that. So I've tried to do that with my kids, and I think there's probably a way to go too far, but I just try to keep it like balanced enough to where they know they can say anything. And like they really can. They can ask me what a card on Cards Against Humanity means.
Yeah. You can only do the best that you can, especially with kids and at this day and age in social media. But there are a lot of things that I think I will do with my kids that my parents didn't do, and predominantly just create that chain of communication. But I mean, with my dad, I've asked him sometimes, like, can you walk me through what happened? I want to hear it from you. And he can't do it. He just says, I just don't remember. And I stopped asking. And you get to a point when you get older and you realize that things that happen to you, you're not going to get closure. The amount of times I've thought about, if I could have gone to if I ever saw the cops again, or who interrogated my dad in those rooms, the fact that they were able to go on and live their lives with the damage that they did. I mean, that sits heavy on you. But I look at my dad and never once has he said I will write a letter one day to the people who did this to me. It's just life. He's able to block it out, and that's probably for the best.
I think realizing that closure is what you make it, and that it's just not. I've always theorized that like that's why we love movies. Exactly. That's why we love all these things, because they tidy up neatly, and our lives just don't do that. Yeah, and that's such a struggle to get to that point, that frustrating point where you're like, okay, this is just life.
Yeah. And I don't know that there is an answer again to that, but I think just the more that you can become comfortable, like really working on yourself internally, and that's what therapy taught me and now in my relationships, or if someone hurts me, whatever, there's just so many times I just don't get closure, even in business. Yeah. But you just have to become confident enough with yourself to realize that, you're looking for validation, I think a lot of times from that closure, to remind you that you did okay or whatnot, and you're not going to get that. So you might as well believe it in yourself and not rely on getting that outside validation. Yeah.
How are you about relationships and maybe things that maybe if somebody hurt you, how are you? I know that in my own life, I've had times where I would just shut them out and be done. And that's been kind of something I've had to find some balance with. And I'm wondering how you are with that and what you tell people about that.
It's a great question. It was a struggle for me, I think, between maybe like 16 and 21, 22, I did that pretty actively. Like I would just cut people out and I didn't voice my opinion. But I think something that I've realized that really is so fascinating is that it's just age. And I started this at 12, right? So when I was 17, I was living in New York when Tinder came out. Like I had no rules. No one was telling me what to do. I was like living on a floor in Bed-Stuy. I did all the shit that kids do in their 20s. So now I feel like mentally I really am like probably 30. So I'm very in tune with my feelings. Like I am the first person, if someone does something to me and I said this actually to someone the other day, like I just asked out of curiosity, like this made me feel like triggered and I don't know why, but I'm curious, like, what was your intention behind that? And if they give me, usually I think when I ask that question, I get the answer back, oh, well, you said something that made me insecure. And I'm like, okay, like now I'm able to put this together, but I no longer close the door in the way without giving them closure. If I do cut something or someone off, it has to do solely because of the way that I'm feeling. And I'm vocal about just saying this just isn't a right fit for me. And I've gotten really good, I think, with dating. And I see a lot of my friends who struggle to close the door. They go out with someone multiple times knowing that that person isn't a right fit. And I'm just so self-aware at this point that I know what I like and what I don't like. And I'm trying to be as honest as I can
and
about
say
that.
it with grace.
Yeah.
Really. Well, it's interesting that, that realization that there isn't closure and all that. And so you actively take a role in providing closure where you can.
Yeah, because you know what it's like, when you don't get the closure and it sucks.
Because we're going to have so many other instances in our lives when we don't get it. So we might as well do what we can to provide that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I can definitely apply that in my own life, I think.
Yeah.
And dating was a really good lesson because I hadn't dated since I was your age, probably 23. And then I got married, and then I had to date in my 40s. So I felt like I was like stunted a little bit and I had to relearn everything. Yeah. But that's a big lesson in like not ghosting and just owning, hey, this isn't a fit, and saying it in a graceful way. And I had a guy, one in particular that I can think of, that got mad, and I was like, okay, well, you're really not a fit now, but
it's so funny too, because I've had guys do that too. And I'm like, okay, everything you're doing, if you were like a little less annoying or neurotic, like I'm being pretty honest. And I mean, I've been in love before and hurt very deeply before. And you learn so much from those relationships. And I think that as much as going through that process, you realize what you want and what you don't want. And now I really look at someone after the experiences that I've gone through, especially really having those feelings for someone of like, now I just know the red flags and the warning signs. And everything that happens or every person that you meet, you have to walk away from hoping that you've met or figured out something about yourself or like what you deserve. And so even all of that pain, hopefully you can transfer all of it into just a growing experience.
Totally. Are you still in therapy now?
So I am not in therapy anymore. I did start going a few months ago because I was going through some bad depression. And then I had a therapist I was matched with on BetterHelp, and I love BetterHelp. And she just made me really depressed.
What happened?
Terrible.
What happened?
I remember I was in a mall and I was just like losing I was crying and I was so emotional. And she was just I wrote to BetterHelp afterwards and was like, I don't know how this woman is licensed, because she made me feel worse. She just kept being like, I'm trying to remember even what she said I was like, I'm so depressed. And she was like, well, like, why are you depressed? And I would tell her, and she would like, I remember she would actually go like, that would make me depressed too.
No.
I had my first session with her in a mall on the ground of this mall crying. And I'm sitting there like watching people walk by me. And I was like, I thought that this would have made me feel better, and I was feeling worse. So anyhow, I haven't gone back since. I am in the process probably at this point of finding someone new, but I've actually been really enjoying trying to go through some of these feelings on my own. I love therapy, and I wouldn't be able to see the other girl who I saw for that period of time who changed my life. She's not on the platform anymore, so I'd have to find someone new.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of enjoying the process right now of like really figuring it out on my own, not asking someone what they think.
Knowing that it's already there.
Yeah.
I think as you do therapy, that's the point,
Exactly.
right? To start to realize that we have the answers within us.
Exactly, and that's the point.
Yeah, it is. How are you viewing that depression now?
It comes and goes. I think that ultimately I am a young entrepreneur. It's a tremendous amount of pressure to do this on your own.
Big time.
And I mean, I don't have any connections like financially behind me. I didn't come from that. So there will always just be a self-doubt element. And so I've gotten really good now at those moments. I mean, I know the triggers. Like when I was sitting in that mall crying, I know exactly what had happened and why. And I had let it get to that. Like I pushed myself, and I was like, when it started to come on, I was like, I give it 4 days and I'm going to be a disaster. And I was. And then I got through it. And that's something that I really learned through therapy too, is just being able to get through it. But I definitely have pretty bad anxiety now. I try not to let the depression get as bad as it has in the past. But I think I'll always have anxiety. And that's probably why I keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Right? Totally. Yeah. I hear you. What practices do you have to not let it get as bad as it can get?
Taking time off. I think,
like we just said, you said you were taking a little break from the internet.
Yeah.
I was like, good for you.
For that. And I think burnout, like feeling those feelings of just almost exhaustion and the lack of passion is when I realized, because I love what I do, but the minute that I feel like something feels just too much for me or too much work is just when I can sense, and the burnout process is just terrible for anyone who's gone through that, they know. And so I just try and counteract it by honestly just not doing anything. But in my normal day-to-day life, I meditate every morning. I work out like pretty heavily 6 days a week, and that is super therapeutic to me. And then I always just like to have days alone. When I moved here from LA, I came from LA where like in LA, you don't go out all the time. It's just super hard to get, you have to drive places, and everyone lives in a different area. So in LA, for the 3.5 years I lived there, I'd maybe go out once a week. And so when I moved here last year, I was able to create this incredible friendship group where we all go out and we go to dinners and stuff. But I also am someone who needs alone time. So to get okay with being like, you guys, I need to be alone, even though I want to hang out, I just can't do it, is also really important. So I'll try and have like 1 to 2 days of just being on my own. And then I can go back to like hang out with people or talking to people or whatever. And that's helpful too.
Big time. Yeah. Paying attention to those spaces. I'm like that too.
Yeah.
I need time, like space, just quiet.
Yeah.
And to be able to say no, which is hard at your age too. I think that like a lot of people haven't cultivated that sense of saying no. And it's hard to get to that because you're saying yes to yourself.
Exactly.
In those spaces.
And there's always now, because of the internet, it's like there's always a sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. And I have friends even in their 30s that are like, should we go? Should we do this? And my friend yesterday, I was in bed and I was like, I'm not going out tonight. And she just sends me a photo from this party and was like, these guys are here. Like, should we go? And I was like, we said an hour ago when we saw each other, not tonight. And I was like, let's stay firm on that, and then we can look at tomorrow. And she's like, okay, you're right. And I was like, I know I'm right because we just talked about it. So that's
for sure. I have people my age, friends my age that still do it. Luckily, I got past it somewhere along the way in the last, 10 years or something. And I was like, I just don't care.
Yeah, you don't care.
I just stopped caring.
Exactly.
Thank God, because it's agonizing.
It is. And the thing is, anytime I've also realized I've said yes to in my heart wanting things that I should have said no to, never once have I gotten out of it what I wanted. Like whether I thought I was going to go and meet a guy or whether I thought I was going to go and make a business connection. Like my mind initially was like, don't go. And I was like, I don't want to deal though with the possibility if I can't. Like, or I missed out on something. And every time I walk away, like, shit, I shouldn't have gone. You said that to yourself. So now I really believe in myself when I'm like, don't do something, just say no.
That's right. Look into those past experiences and be able to say, yeah, I remember that one.
Exactly.
I had a question on that too, but it just escaped me. I am curious too about the choice of calling your summit Be Fearless. Yeah. Can you tell me like about the summit and what that's all about and then why you chose that name?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I came up with that name. So when I moved to LA, I basically moved to LA because I had pitched this show.
From Brooklyn?
No, I was living in Boston at the time. So I was in New York for a year and then I went to Boston. Still didn't go to college. I had started a nonprofit called Media Impact and Navigation for Teens, was living in Boston, still really paying my bills with these TV segments and brand collaborations, which allowed me to be able to focus on the podcast and the website when I wasn't making much money off of that, probably when I was about 18, 19. And then I had found a producer list online and pitched a show to 466 producers, got one reply from someone at Disney. It was like, if you live in LA, let's take a meeting. And I didn't live in LA, but I was like kind of over Boston at this point. I called a childhood friend of mine who was a little like rogue. We both did the whole high school dropout thing and was like,
did you drop out of high school?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I did drop out when I was 17. I finished online I finished 2 years in 4 months. So I don't know. I think I got a diploma somewhere out in the world.
Does it even matter?
It's somewhere, I don't know. But I'm very adamant of I should have stayed in high school. Like I should not have been allowed to do this. Whatever. So I went in that 3 months. What ended up happening is I had gotten a phone call from someone who was a really big manager in LA who had seen me on a TV segment and called me. And I was living in West Hollywood at the time and was like, we're interested in taking a meeting with you. And I was like, this is actually great timing because I have a meeting in a few weeks with these people at Disney and I have no idea what's going on. But I had also started this thing called Fearless Fridays. So every Friday I would do something that got me out of my comfort zone. And so I told the manager on the phone, like, I've started this thing. And it was just, I thought it was like a cute and kitschy name. And so I'd included that in the Disney pitch. And then when I started meeting with the management team and they ended up taking me on, that name just, when we would go through almost like what makes Alexa Curtis, like what makes me excited about life. The word fearless just made a lot of sense. And so I ended up getting the show and they called it Fearless Every Day. And that always just stayed with me. And now it really resonates with people. Like,
do you really consider yourself fearless?
I do. I think to be fearless, you have to be so willing to be uncomfortable. Even something like saying no, right? A lot of people wouldn't say no to things because they're too scared of what someone else would think. So I think there's so many, you can go skydiving every day and I've done that before and that's fearless. But there's an element of almost being so accepting of this journey and being able to vocalize about it and tell people about it that I find pretty fearless. Yeah. It resonates with me.
Do you think being uncomfortable is a habit and like, you get more used to it?
Yeah, for me, it's something that drives me. And I think especially in business, that's something that I'm really intrigued by is being uncomfortable, even going through a business deal or looking at a contract because I learned something. I don't know, for the most part, most people would be able to live my kind of lifestyle because there is no confirmation that you will ever in a sense, get anywhere. Like I've gotten to this point, but it also could all end tomorrow. And then what would I do? I don't know. I didn't go to college, right? And I don't have a traditional job behind me. So I would certainly say, if you do want to pursue any element of this, keep your day job, but also let yourself try things out and maybe something will come of it.
Yeah. But how attached to outcome are you? I mean, do you consider yourself, I guess I work hard to let go of the how, let go of what's going to come about. So do you consider yourself a person that's really good at letting go of the expectations and living in that space of like a disattachment from outcome?
Yes. And I think my biggest regret as a young person was that between 16 and 18, I put so much pressure on myself.
That's that control thing, right?
Control. And I have no idea why. And I remember even when I got when I first got a fake ID, my sister, I remember she found it because my mom had found it and called my sister. And I got it with a friend of mine. And no, if anyone's listening to this, like don't get fake IDs, but a lot of teens
Oh my God.
do.
I just had a whole conversation with my kids about fake IDs too.
And my mom found it and whatever. And I remember my sister calling me and be like, so mom, like she told me like, I don't know what you're doing and stuff, but she's like, I want to tell you one thing. Now that you have this, you're going to do everything that you should do in your 20s. And she was like, just watch out for yourself because I know how you are. And I know that then you're going to hit your age in your 20s where you're like, what the F do I do now? And I get why she said that because I did put so much pressure on myself in those young adult ages to like make something of myself and make money and live the life that I wanted to live that I missed out. And I think being a kid, a young person, finding myself a bit because I found myself in other ways, predominantly through business. But now I'm way better at like living in the moment. But I'm also now really conscious of like by 27, I want to buy a house. I have no part of me is like by this age, I want to be married or have kids. No way. But I think by this age, I'd like to sell a company. By this age, I'd like to buy a house. Okay, so like maybe I won't go out tonight because I should wake up early tomorrow and have this call and have like a good headspace. So I'm more conscious about that, but I've let the control thing go because it's too hard. Otherwise, you're constantly disappointed, and that feeling I hate.
For sure. How are you about substances and
I've
drinking,
tried
whatever?
Yeah, I've tried things. I personally don't have an addictive personality, and I'm very lucky for that because people in my family do, and I know that I don't because I'm someone who, sure, I would try anything once, and never once have I ever gone back to one thing. But I'm very aware of microdosing. I find it really interesting. I haven't really dabbled in it too much, but I know a lot of very creative people that do, and I think it's great.
I've got someone to connect you with.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm super interested in that. I'm fascinated.
Bijou Finney, she's been on the show and she's a good friend of mine.
Okay, I'll listen to that episode as well. And what is she microdosing? Is it shrooms?
Mushrooms, and it's about conscious entrepreneurship.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to listen to that.
It's a good fit for you.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that because I certainly think that some of those things help you get out of your element. I mean, anything that's, hardcore, anything along the lines of like cocaine or Adderall, which is basically meth. Never once have I ever found anyone who's doing any of that. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's illegal and is like doing really well in their life. So I would certainly say stay away from those. But any of the other things, I mean, even a little bit of, I've seen like people do acid and things like that in the smallest form. And I really appreciate that. I think it does allow you to open up creatively as long as it's done in the right way. And I mean, aside from that, I'm really fascinated by ketamine therapy. Yeah. I would certainly do that. I think at some point in ayahuasca, I'm really fascinated by. But I think I want to get to a certain point where like I don't have the anxiety that I have to go into it. So I really have it as a healing experience. I wouldn't want in the moment for anything bad to happen. So I think you really have to go into it like fully. I think microdosing shrooms and stuff certainly like I can do and dabble in and be okay. But the other things I'm a little intimidated by the other two. I don't know that I want to go through the pain yet.
Yeah, maybe not. You know what? Those things present when you're ready and you'll know. You sound at least in touch enough with yourself to know when you're ready for those. Yeah. And, I'm very torn on it because also you've worked so hard to heal yourself and to find ways within yourself to heal. And that's really what it's all about.
Exactly. And drinking, I mean, you mentioned drinking too. I mean, like drinking's bad for you, right? It's bad. It makes you fat. It will age you. Like it's a terrible thing.
I've just noticed it has a mental impact.
It does. Me too. And I realized when I moved to Austin, people here party so much.
They really do.
In LA, it was very heavy, like back doors of clubs and a lot of like things like cocaine and drinking and whatnot. Here, there is a huge obsession with drinking in the culture, and that's great. But I've seen it. I feel the effects if I do 2 days or 3 days straight on a weekend of drinking with my friends and stuff. I don't feel happy. Like I don't feel, there's just something missing. And I know what's missing is like your serotonin is like depleted. So I'm fine with like a cocktail. I try and like limit it to that or like a few glasses of wine. And aside from that, I mean, that's why I'm the older I get, I can certainly see myself being more interested in things like microdosing because there's no effect really the next day. But in that like 4-hour time, if you take a mushroom or whatever, it just feels like good. And then
actually, I've found it does carry over for days in a positive way.
In a positive way. Okay, different. Okay.
Yeah, so I could take it like 3 days a week, and I'm not right now because I'm on the whole sober train.
Okay.
But I've noticed, it can have a lasting effect, which is really a good thing. Or it can push my emotions a little too far, in which case I'll back off.
What made you want to go sober?
I haven't tried it.
Okay.
And I have a partner who is. And once I had a conversation with a sober coach, I just thought, you know what? I've done enough right now to actually explore this space. And it pushes me out of my comfort zone. Like I was telling you, I went to that play party last weekend and, which I'm going to talk about on this show, but doing that totally sober was totally out of my comfort zone. And so I know, you go like, And so that just pushed me. And so I'm finding that it pushes me in new ways, even to go out and to own that and to just be myself and still have a good time is like a whole push for me out of my comfort zone. And I'm like, that's weird because it kind of flips it around.
That is so fearless. It's so fearless.
Thank you.
And I think it's so cool. And I have a lot of friends also in the sober space. And I dabble, like I'll go then 2 weeks without drinking or without doing anything. And headspace, sure, I definitely feel better. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it kind of just like fluctuates, but I think there is something really hard. And I've realized that being here of like going out or going on a date or something and being like, I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
And I've actually done studies on this or like tried to research like what is it that makes it so hard to say no to that one thing. And I realized it's because the person who is asking you to drink or whatever, like they don't want to drink alone or they don't want to think you're boring. And that's where you have to get to a point of like, I don't give a shit what anyone thinks. I'm going to say no because I just don't want to drink. But it's hard because it's convincing. It's convincing. And someone's like, are you pregnant? Are you sober? Are you depressed? And it's like, no, I'm just not in the mood to drink.
Why.
Yes.
Yeah. You talk a lot about not worrying about what people think, but at the same time, you're recognizing that you're turning 25 and you've got these things. Do you think that's pressure that you put on yourself? Or do you think that's external and a little bit of that like, oh, society is telling me I should be here? Or, a little bit of the worry about what people think? Or do you think it's more you?
I wouldn't say that I ever feel influenced per se by society. I would say that it's certainly me, those goals. Also, I mean, look, when you look at my trajectory and my background, like because of the fact that what happened to my dad, I have put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself to be able to give them the life that I think that they deserve. My mom has worked. My mom is 71. Like I'm 24. She's old. She had me at 48.
Wow.
So I have that consciously in the back of my mind of like, what is the first thing I would do if I made $2 million? Buy them a house, like buy like whatever they want. Even if it was all of that money gone, that is the first thing. And then of course give back and whatnot through like other means. But that is just an amount of pressure that I put on myself. And I think that's why I'm successful is I just I won't give up on this dream and getting to that goal. But sure, there is then elements of at the end of the day, I am 24. Do I go out every day and not give a shit what people think? No, I don't. I do talk about it all the time, but there are still many moments when I care probably too much and I have to just ground myself a little bit. And that's why, like I said, when I walked in here, I'm not going on social media for, I don't know, just until I'm in the mood to this week, because I felt like over the weekend, just a little bit too influenced by what other people thought. And I don't like that because that is like a mind trip for me as someone who lives so authentically me. And someone said that to me as well. I was talking to a friend of mine about something had said to me that like almost made me feel really insecure. She was like, you talk about this for a living. Like you've inspired me, the things that you say to me. She was like, don't let this stupid shit redirect you from that. And that's kind of like, it was an event and people were drinking and they were out. And I think at the end of the day, like I forget sometimes how public I am online. And so people have perceptions about you and expectations and things that they think. And they will make those theories on you based on anything. And because this is now such a small town that I've realized, in particular Austin, that it's just something that someone had said that I felt like had been taken out of context of something that I had said. And I then became almost a little bit insecure of like, do these people think this about me? And then I remember myself like, I don't really care what anyone thinks about me, but I tried to get to the root of the problem through the weekend. Why did I care so much? And honestly, probably it was because everyone was drinking. I think that's a huge thing. And so that's why then I like to not drink during the week or for X amount of days, is because I think a lot of it is stemmed by that. And certainly people say things that are stupid when they're not sober. But yeah, that's it.
Nothing like being sober to realize that.
Exactly. But yeah.
What are your big goals? Like, what are, like, when you look at the impact that you'd like to have?
So right now I'm really focused on this mentorship company that I started. So the Be Fearless Summit. So basically I go around different colleges and host these pop-ups. And then I never thought I would do another one after the one that I did in February. And then another school came to me and was like, basically whatever you want to be paid, we want this at our school. And that was like really interesting to me because it's very rare in business that someone is like, you can just throw out a number and they're like,
what do you want to be paid?
And that's really cool. That felt very rewarding. But there is also then a sense of that's like almost—
I don't know what I would say to that. I feel like, oh,
it's intimidating.
Okay.
I called 5 different people and every fucking person gave me a number and I ended up going with the lowest number. And I was like, shit, I should have gone with the highest one because it's still like, there's a sense of that it's still intimidating. And I hate when I say a number that's too high. And then a lot of times in business, I've realized if you go too high, a lot of times you just can't negotiate. Immediately they're like, no, we're out. And then if you go back and you're like, wait, I can do this. They're like, well, now you've like devalued what you were going to bring to us. And it's hard. So sometimes I will lowball a little bit just because it is still a startup and I'm still learning. But so now we're doing another one in the fall. But through that, I was connected with another woman in Austin who is older than me and has a successful mentorship company. And so we're building this company now. We're going to merge both of these. And we just got into a really big accelerator program that's basically 7% for 150,000. And so my goal was probably to build this up for the next few years. And then I think we both want to sell it. And then what I would love to do from there is, I think at the end of the day, like the TV side of things is certainly my sweet spot. That's where I feel the most at home. So whether that would be either having some type of show, like a morning show or whatnot, that was always kind of my goal. And then I'd love to start a fund where I give back to other young entrepreneurs with ideas and mentor them. And I think that's certainly what I would like to do for the rest of my life.
I love that. Yeah. Good. Yeah. I had a feeling that you probably had some impactful goals like that. And your podcast, tell me a little bit more like how you're feeling about that.
So I started the first one when I was living. I had two co-hosts over the years and it was very successful. So the first one was called This Is Life Unfiltered. And I went for about 155 episodes and then stopped it during COVID. About when I signed with Disney, my heart started to feel it. I stopped it on my own even before that show. I just started to feel like almost a little bit burnt out of hearing everyone else's stories. I felt like I was interviewing so many people, but I was coming to terms with who I was, and a part of me wanted to share that more. And then on top of that, signing with Disney, like they didn't love that I did so much stuff outside of Disney, and it was hard to do 2 shows. And so I stopped it during Disney, and then I started a new show called The New Unfiltered, maybe 2 years ago, but it went on pause for a bit. And so now I'm putting out episodes weekly. And it's way more of my story now. I do interview other people and I love that. But at this point, I'm kind of just interested in mostly sharing my story and my experiences to help other young people, either wanting to start their own company or wanting to be inspired and be fearless. And so it's a bit of both. And perhaps one day this one will get picked up on a network. But for the meantime, I'm just putting the energy that I want into it. And anyone who listens is hopefully still inspired by what I have to say. And so it's kind of just a new chapter. It's a little bit more authentic.
Yeah. I'm interested in like, one thing that I've been doing is working to find that balance between sitting in the flow of whatever's happening and how you're feeling, but also balancing that with these future goals.
Yes.
You sound pretty tuned into that. And that speaks to me.
That's a great point. And you can probably resonate with this with podcasting. And another girl actually is a really successful podcaster said this the other day, and she was like, and unless you're in this world and in this industry, you don't realize, but like this hour conversation for you is probably in a sense a little exhausting. Like it is really hard to sit through an hour conversation with someone and then go and have 24 more interviews after this. Like I found when I have an episode, and not an episode like mentally, like when I film with someone, I mean, you take into account.
Not that kind of episode.
No, you take like their feelings into account. You have to be so present in this moment. And so there's something so precious about that with podcasting, but there's also a sense of that that's almost like anything that is said or through the process it's heavy sometimes. Like these deep conversations, they take mental energy that you don't have in a 10-minute phone call with someone. And so I love that, but I also try and and really tune into those feelings. And especially, I mean, financially, podcasting is a production. It costs money. I sometimes regret that I stopped the first podcast because I made a lot of money off of it. And at this point, it probably would have been something else, but I left and went to Disney. So can't really regret it. But yeah, you know, I'm so focused on the other side of things, and the podcasting does take so much time and energy that I just try and do it to the ability that I can, because I will never sell this podcast. I will sell this summit company. And ultimately, you have to pick and choose. You only have so much time in a day. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite like bits of advice and things that you've learned over the last, I don't know, however many years, 24, I guess.
Oh, I've also interviewed so many successful founders. And so it's cool seeing their stories and how they got to where they were.
Big time. Yeah, totally.
One in particular, I interviewed the founder of Headspace, Andy Puddicombe.
Cool. Yeah.
And that was probably the best interview I ever had on the Disney show and also my podcast. I'm trying to think of like best pieces of advice. I mean, obviously something like that you hear all the time of like living in the moment, but also taking it to the next step of like learning how to live in the moment through mental exercises and like meditation, therapy, and all of that is really important.
I'm sure he was like a master at that.
Also being okay with making mistakes. I talk a lot about that. And I find that every time I make a mistake or I do something that I shouldn't have done, in like a light sense, I always walk away having learned something. And that's
so is it really a mistake?
I don't know. Is it? I don't know. But there's certainly times where I look back and I'm like, I wish I hadn't done that. But also, what did I learn?
And so, you're here now. So it's
exactly.
Kind of like,
and every day, you never know what's going to happen in every day. So I would say that business-wise, I always think at this point, even though I do sometimes feel a little uncomfortable asking for what I think I'm worth or what I think this company that I've built is worth, getting comfortable with asking for it, even if someone says no, is critical. And a lot of the big entrepreneurs I've interviewed have said that being able to know your worth enough to say it to someone and walk away if they say no is how you almost create this sense of like sex appeal to whatever it is that you're doing.
Ooh,
because you have to be so okay to, if someone doesn't want to take you for what you are, then screw them. It really doesn't matter. So probably all of that. And then being fearless, getting out of your comfort zone, all the things I talk about all the time.
Yeah.
I live by, so I can say that good. I do live by
you
what
gotta
I
live
say.
it. You gotta be about it.
Exactly.
How are you on the worthiness piece of all this? Like, because I know that's just been something I've struggled with over the years.
Yeah, I feel good now. I struggled for a long time when I was younger.
I'm sure with the modeling stuff too, it's like feeling worthy in that business is, I'm sure, very, very difficult.
Sure. And then when I signed with Disney, there was a whole other side of it of like, I was a nobody in a sense. Like they took me on as a host. I'm not an actress. So I went in.
You weren't like starring on one of their shows.
No,
and then
I was like completely, interviewing.
Part of the Disney system.
Yeah. And so that was really interesting for me. And through that experience, I've certainly felt very alone and at moments very worthless in LA because it's a culture of kids of celebrities and kids who come from so much money and trying to prove that you're able to get to that level when you don't have that behind you. It's really hard. And I mean, obviously most of my friends are still in the industry and it's fine if they've come from that, but there's certainly a sense of like, I'm not going to deny that there's been moments across the way when I've been really jealous because of something that someone got that they didn't have to work for or whatnot.
Oh my God, I can imagine that goes on so much with so much nepotism and
so much. And the funniest thing is anytime now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, in those moments, like those people were asking me how to make money. How do you do what you do? Like, how do you start a company and do this? And I'm like, you have 1 million Instagram followers. If I had 1 million Instagram followers, I would be a billionaire. And they literally are like, I'm too even anxious to pick up the phone when someone calls and is like, how can I pay you? They're like, so it's almost just that was very grounding. So now I feel I'm very confident. I still have moments where I am very 24. I feel too insecure certain moments or someone that says triggers me. And I think that's an age thing. But ultimately, like I say no to the things I don't want to. If I go on a date with someone I'm just not into, I just say it.
Yeah.
So that side I'm really good at.
Maybe there's like a sweet awareness about that, what you just said about being 24, like, how are you supposed to have it all figured out at 24? You're not.
You're not.
You're just not. And so we shouldn't put that pressure on ourselves. No. You can say, yeah, that's part of where I'm at in life right now and this human experience. Yeah. And that's just okay.
Exactly. And one of my really good best guy friends is going through a breakup now. And I went through a breakup last year. And I've been really kind of helping him through the process because I don't think he's ever felt this way before. And he keeps being like, just everything he asked me, I have to be like, and I'm not going to say his name, but, look, I think you just have to remember, and this is something I've had to remember, your age. You've never experienced this before. So the questions you're asking me, because I went through this last year, I'm able to like tell you what I really think and how I got through it. But ultimately, if this was happening to you at 30, like the rest of the friends in our group are 30, they would ask totally different questions. Why did this person hurt me? What, like in a different way. Whereas he, and I have done this too, I internalize it. When you go through, I think that kind of like pain or someone breaks your heart, it's
What
like,
did I do?
What did I do?
And I'm like, I have done different.
Exactly. If you and I were, I think at this point, 28, 29, you wouldn't ask me that question. You'd be like, who do you know now who I can meet who's way better than this person? But because we're just still so young, like you haven't gone through it before. Of course, the only thing that it comes down to is you don't feel yet confident enough in yourself. And I told him that as well, as like, look, I think instead of thinking already about your next relationship, get to the point of where you can come and be like, I don't even want to be surrounded by this person. Stop waiting for this person to text you because they're just not going to reach out to you and they hurt you. You don't want someone who hurt you to reach out to you. But I think that's a wiseness thing. That's an age thing. And
an experience thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I had to learn too. Even just going through dating, I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to enjoy this if I'm going to do it, enjoy it, and let go of those things that aren't a fit.
Let go. And also just take everything with a grain of salt. I think my biggest probably weakness is that I get so like in the moment, like stressed out or anxious or thinking like, why did this happen or what? And this person's not even thinking about that. They literally don't care. No one is really caring about what you're doing. Someone actually said that to me on Saturday. That was something that actually triggered me, is he was like, literally no one gives a shit what you do. And I was like,
wow.
It was a little aggressive.
That's a little aggressive.
It was a little aggressive. And again, like everyone was drinking, whatever. But that was a moment of like, okay, now that you said that, why do I care? Because you're right. In theory, no one cares what I'm doing. No one cares what you're doing or what any of us are doing. They're paying attention, but no one is waking up being like, oh my God, Alexa Curtis posted this. I'm now thinking about it. Whereas I might be thinking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just take everything a little bit looser, I think, is something that if everyone can work on, people wouldn't get so stressed or anxious in those moments of trying to question so many things.
Yeah. Oof, what a thing to have said. I mean, yes, there's truth to it, but at the same time, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
No, and I mean, there's a sense, there's like a small grain of salt of that, right? That there was truth to what he said. But it is a reminder of like, okay, yeah, you were a little bit right. Like I'm trying to acknowledge something that I thought could have been handled differently, but also like you're making abundantly clear that no one else cares. So like, why do I care? If no one else cares, I don't know. Like, let's just move on then.
I've tried to just reflect what I want to see, and I've tried to care more about what people are doing in order to put that out in the world, like be what you want to see kind of thing. So I'm like, yeah, I care about this show. I care a lot about it. I would love to have it. Well, I want to be the number one female podcaster in the world. And so that's my goal. And so I'm like, okay, well then I better care about people's podcasts. I better care about their voices. I better care about those things. And so I have tried to care in the most positive way to put that out and, create more of that, because what we're putting out creates more. So, him just saying that, no one cares. Well, okay. That's what you're putting out there then.
Yeah. And again,
I care what you're doing. So I'm going to say that.
And I think, it was a silly thing to be said and whatnot. And I know that people care and whatever, but that's one of those moments where you have to be so in tune with yourself of like, I know that no one does. Like, it really obviously people care, otherwise I wouldn't do this for a living. But there was a sense of that was like, okay, that kind of like hit my ego a little bit. So now I have to remember what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and that people do care, and like it doesn't matter what other people think. And I love that you say you want to be the top podcaster in the world, because a lot of people do this and they have no expectations, and that's great. But I think to really get to the next level is you have to have a sense of like, this is where I'm headed. Otherwise, you probably you'll get burnt out or bored. Yeah. You have to love this process. And I think you also have to have an end goal, and it takes time. Like I never would have thought half the things that I've done, I would have done. But that's where it's really exciting, is like once you have that goal, you're so obsessed with doing it every day because you love it.
I'm going to stick with it. The network can close. Whatever happens can happen. And I'm like, no, I really love doing this. So I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to stick with it because this is my goal. So is what I'm doing aligned with that? And yes. So, you show up, I make sure things are set up, and here we are.
Exactly.
And I lift good voices like yours that are doing good things in the world. Fuck yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we are at about an hour, and is there anything that you really wanted to mention today? or anything that you'd like to reiterate, or anything just on your heart that you would like to say before we go, or anything we missed?
Anything on my heart? I would probably say if anyone listening to this is young or in their 20s is kind of, and I've said it throughout this show, is like, just be okay that a lot of the things that I think that you feel are validated, even if society makes you want to feel like you're supposed to be the best person every day, or you're supposed to be the most confident person in the room. At the end of the day, like, you are in your 20s. This is the time that you can fall down and make mistakes and have no expectations, and you can get hurt and you can fall in love again and get hurt again and fall back in love. I mean, when you're 40, probably, I don't know that everyone wants to be going through that shit. I certainly look forward to being 30 or 35 so that I don't get so caught up in the moment. Mm-hmm. But try and simplify your life of like when you feel those things and those emotions, and remind yourself and ground yourself that the person who you want to be or who you idolize went through the same stuff in this particular 10-year period. And so I would certainly say that. And then I always like to say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Being able to say no to things or tell someone that you're just not that into them is really dope. Like, don't string people along. Don't ghost people. Just be a good fucking person.
Yes. Just be a good fucking person.
Yeah.
And it really feels good.
Yeah, it does.
Yes. I've been studying a lot of honesty lately, and just having a lot of different things come up around that. And it just, I've been noticing even in my littlest things, like times that I try to make something more palatable to someone rather than just gracefully saying the truth. And it feels so good to notice those spaces and be able to own your truth even more strongly.
Oh my God. The amount of times I've said someone like, I can't go to dinner because I have to work, when in reality I was going to dinner with someone else. Like, that is just
those little things.
That is, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that is something that you really want to hone into. And now I try just not to do that. Cause I don't know if you consider that a lie or dishonesty.
You are chipping away at your own integrity
exactly.
when you do that.
Exactly.
And you hear your voice not telling the truth. So you're not really a person to be trusted. And then that's going to reflect out into the world, whether you want it to or not, or whether you think it does or not. People can pick up on that shit.
And it's bad. And especially if you're able to be like, I want to be a good person, and then you're not able to be honest with yourself. It is all down to like, I think especially those kind of little white lies is like, you're not in tune enough with yourself to be able to respect yourself enough to tell someone how you feel. It all comes back to you. Like, really, at the end of the day, all that matters is how you feel when you get up. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter who or what you said to someone and how they feel. How did it make you feel? So like, stop focusing on all of those outside things and really focus on, how can I make myself feel like the best person every day and like a good person to the people around me?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. That's good stuff. And it's just a matter of really tuning into those moments and staying present and aware. So you're very good at being aware. I like it a lot.
So are you.
Ahead of your years by far. So anyway, I really enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you so much. Can you share exactly how everyone can find you? And I'll make sure it's all in the show notes.
Sure. Yeah. My website is www.lifeunfiltered.com. And then the Instagram is at Alexa_Curtis. And then for the other company, it's at Be Fearless Summit and www.befearlesssummit.org.
And your next Be Fearless is in the fall, you said?
Yes, it's September 28th with Central Connecticut State University.
Cool.
So this will be a little bit of a different model. It'll only be 4 hours. It'll be a little bit more like intensive workshops and stuff. And then I'm excited to see what happens after that, whether or not there's another one or whether or not I just focus on the mentorship. It's all exciting progress.
It's so exciting. Yeah. And I'm just going to shout out how we met too, which is through Creative Futures Collective, which is the mentorship program that Jai Alatas is a co-founder of, and he's been on the show, and you are the youngest mentor they've ever had.
And you are the coolest mentor. I mean, I really like everyone in that group, but you certainly, I think, are the coolest. When I met you, I was like, I want to know this girl.
Oh, it's so sweet. Thank you. Well, I really was excited to meet you and get to know you further. Thank you for being so candid and sharing your story and just lifting that out into the world. It really, really matters.
Thank you.
That's what helps people.
Agreed.
Thank you. I love you. Thank you for being here.
This has been the Amy Edwards Show from Overcome Studios. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you so much for being here. Sign up for our newsletter at amyedwards.com.